We're happy to have so many of you joining us today and really, really appreciate you taking time to join us. My name's Milena, and I am part of the team here at QGive. If you haven't had the opportunity to work with us before, we are an online fundraising platform dedicated to helping nonprofits fundraise. Some housekeeping before we dive in. Today's webinar will be about 45 minutes with a Q&A session to follow, keeping our total time to about an hour. We are recording the webinar, so each of you will get a follow-up email, which will include a recording of today's session, a copy of the presentation and slides, as well as links to all of the different resources that we discussed today and a few more. If you have any questions at all during the presentation, please place them in the Q&A and Julie and I will get to them at the end of the presentation. The chat can move pretty fast, so we want to make sure that your questions are in a place that we can easily access. And immediately after the webinar, you will see a survey pop up. Please take a few short minutes to complete the survey. Your feedback is really crucial in helping us determine future content. And before we dive in here, I am just going to give a quick background on QGive, then hand it over to Julia. QGive has been helping nonprofits implement and grow their fundraising since 2007. As the importance of online giving increases, our mission has always remained the same: to help nonprofits fulfill their passion to make a difference. We use a comprehensive suite of online giving tools that includes auctions, donation forms, event forms, peer-to-peer fundraising, and more. And now, to kick things off, it is my pleasure to introduce y'all to Julia Campbell, today's speaker. Many of you are probably already familiar with Julia and her work, but I'll hand things over to her so she can tell you a bit more about herself and begin today's lesson on social media strategy.
Yes. Hi, everyone. I'm excited to be here. I hope you can see me and hear me, and I think you can. So it's a very hot day in Boston. I would love to know where you're watching from and, what the temperature is. I don't know if I want to know if it's cooler than 90 degrees. Milena, what is it like where you are?
Lakeland, Florida. So it's very hot. Very, 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 very hot. Probably about 104, 105 with the heat
Amazing.
index and the humidity, which is rough.
Yeah, no, that is really, really rough. I'm going to the beach. Not after this. I have one more thing to do after this, but then I'm going to go to the beach with my kids. So I'm really excited. But thanks everyone for being here today. I'm thrilled to talk to you about a topic that I'm very passionate about, that I've been working a lot on, doing a lot of research and a lot of presentations on, and that's how to create a future-proof strategy for your marketing, for your social media. And to be honest, I think that it's kind of challenging. I mean, I think when you say, future proof, you tend to think, how is that possible? But I'm going to show you some of the overarching infrastructure and things that you need to be considering when you're creating a strategy that is going to weather all of the different storms. So if you don't know anything about me, I am Julia Campbell. I'm a mom of two, former Peace Corps volunteer, written 2 books for nonprofits, storytelling, one on storytelling, one on social media. I come from the development world and the marketing world, really. I've been a development and marketing director at very small shops, big shops as well. I host the Nonprofit Nation podcast every week, drops on Wednesday, something that I'm really passionate about, that I really, really love to do. So what we're going to cover today, the ways to navigate the changes and trends in the current landscape, and then my 4 pillars of social media management, and then also how to schedule your time online around those 4 pillars, and then strategy steps to build your plan, even in very uncertain times, as it is always very uncertain times, as we know. And then definitely there'll be time for Q&A at the end. So anytime I reference a study or a statistic, I want to list my trusted sources that I go to for these kind of benchmarks and this kind of data. Pew Research Center, the Blackbaud Institute of Charitable Giving Report, the Fundraising Effectiveness Project, M&R Benchmarks, the Global Trends in Giving Report. And then eMarketer actually has a really great report, the Social Media Usage Report, that I refer to pretty frequently as well. So these are all links. When you receive the slides, you should be able to access those. You can just Google them, and they're very easy to find. So what are some trends that we need to consider? So Seth Godin is my favorite marketing guru expert. And what he says and what he teaches is that it's not about the stuff that we make. It's not about how we do it. It's not about our programs and our services, specifically the nuts and bolts, but it's about the stories that we tell. And how does that translate into what's going on in social media? So a bit about the landscape that we're entering into. So the majority of nonprofits, they do agree that social media is effective for creating brand awareness. A lot of traffic comes from social media. And what's most important to me and what's really interesting is that of a good majority, I mean, 36%, that's a lot of people, considering that the majority of people on social media are lurkers. They never post their own content. They don't comment or share. They just view. But the people that are participating say that they've used social media sites like Facebook and Twitter in the past month to show support for a cause, which I thought was really cool. Also, when we're talking about whether or not social media matters, social media management matters, it does matter. For the very first time in 2021, the Global Trends in Giving Report found that social media is the tool that most inspires online donors to give. And usually it's email. So email is always the number one, but in 2021, social media took the throne. So I thought that was interesting. 87% of donors who first donate from a social referral source make their second donation from a social referral source. We can't sneeze at these facts. Now, Mark Zuckerberg announced in 2021 that Facebook and Instagram, they hit a milestone. The community raised over $5 billion for nonprofits and charitable causes through Facebook fundraising tools. And what that means is that more than 85 million organizers and donors chose to support an organization through Facebook. Now, this is $5 billion raised on Facebook and Instagram, like with the charitable donate button. Imagine how many billions more were raised when you put a link to an outside website, like a QGive donate page, right? Imagine how much more was raised. I'm thinking we could double or triple this because they really only have data for what happened on their platform. They don't know what happens when you go off the platform. But this goes to show billions and billions of dollars are being raised with these tools as an impetus, as a catalyst. Now, you might be thinking, well, all of these tools are great, but our donors are older. They're not online. We're not going to make that assumption here because it seems silly to make the assumption that older donors are not online. My mom has 2 Instagram accounts. She has Venmo. Actually, I just set her up with a Venmo yesterday. She's 75. Okay. Sorry, mom, if you're watching to tell everybody your age, but she's very savvy, has an iPad, has an iPhone, pays a lot of bills online. We really can't assume that this generation of donors is not online, especially younger generations, Gen X, millennials, Gen Z. So we need to stop making assumptions that older generations are not participating online, right? So not everyone has the same tools as everyone else, and not everyone prefers the same things as everyone else. But the key for us to know as fundraisers and marketers, there are 5, maybe like probably 6 now, distinct generations alive in the United States. I mean, that's really crazy to think about. And we have to figure out a way to reach all of them. We have to. That is our responsibility as fundraisers. We need to figure out what's going to appeal to the silent generation and what's going to appeal to Gen Z. And then, my daughter is 12, and my son is 7. What's going to appeal to them? So we do have to continue with the tried and true tactics that are working, but we also really can't rely on those tried and true tactics because generations change, behaviors change. So it's a huge responsibility, but we've got this. We can do it. The internet is not an ATM. Social money is not a money faucet. Let's all repeat it. Repeat after me. These channels need to be used to build up trust first. Okay. Once trust is built and you've been showing up for your online community on the regular, giving them valuable information that they want, sharing powerful stories of your impact and gathering feedback, then you are ready to convert people. So marketing success, which I need to put the S in there, requires a long-term commitment and strategy. There's just no silver bullets, and there's no one size fits all. There are best practices. There are things that tend to work, but success is like exercise. You might like yoga. I might like spin. Someone else might like, CrossFit. It doesn't matter. Consistency over time is key. It's a marathon, not a sprint. We've got to commit to it. You might be better suited to Instagram. Another nonprofit might be better suited to Twitter. And it's always changing, right? It's always changing. So what we share on social media, we need to really understand that it's not just about pushing out marketing messages. It's really about affirming our values and our belief systems and reaching the people who think like us and who might want to get involved. It's also about deepening relationships with existing supporters, hopefully getting them to bring others into the fold. I mean, that's kind of our hope. So where does this fit into your overall strategic plan? This can't be something that you just assign an intern to and then never speak to them again. And this is why I don't really believe in outsourcing. I think you can outsource video production, you can outsource content creation, you can outsource graphic design, but posting and managing your community really needs to be a piece of it needs to be baked into your nonprofit strategic plan. And it needs to not be working at cross purposes of your offline strategies. So everything really, take a sip of water, it needs to look and feel the same. So future proofing requires much more strategy and intention than it does jumping on every new tool. So the very first step, identifying what you're actually trying to achieve. If all of this work, this spinning of the wheels, this content creation, if all of it worked, what would it look like? How can it help your nonprofit grow? Where are the possibilities and opportunities, and how will you know success? So how is it fitting in to your bigger strategic plans? And I don't want you to start with the tools. Do not start with the tools. My favorite cartoon, our cat adoption numbers tanked this quarter, but the important thing is our YouTube views are way up. Okay, well, great. You've got a lot of YouTube views, but you still need people to adopt the cats. So that's why I don't want you to start with the tools like YouTube views, getting on Facebook, start tweeting, get fans. Those are tactics to help you get to your goals. Your goal is cat adoption. The tactics are YouTube video views, because maybe you're using that to raise awareness, build your email list, retarget ads, whatever you're trying to do. You need to know who you want and need to reach. So there are people you want to reach, but why? And then there are people that you need to reach. So there's people that are already with you. They've raised their hand. Maybe they're on your email list. They're fans, they're followers. And then there's people that you need to reach to constantly be getting new and viable audiences and people into the network, into the community. So know your current audience. What do your supporters really value? What do they want to know more about as related to your nonprofit and your work? What motivates them? What drives them? What gets them excited? So an example that I share, PETA, People for the Ethical Treatment of Animals. Now, PETA has a really robust and very active and very engaged social media presence. They know who they're talking to, and they know what kind of imagery and video and captioning and language resonates with this particular audience. I can't even really look at the PETA social media because it is very upsetting, but this is what mobilizes and catalyzes their people and gets them to share and donate and gets them to participate. However, Best Friends Animal Society, same mission, by the way, like around the same mission, same vision, they take a totally different tact, and they share stories of people. They share stories of animals after surviving, the cruel life of a dog fighting ring. So for them, they really understand what their audience what resonates with their audience and what's going to move their audience to action. So there's no one size fits all, and there's no one right way to do this. You need to truly, truly, truly dig deeply and understand your audience and the kinds of content that are going to resonate with them. What does your target audience already know about you? What misconceptions may they have about the population you work with or the work that you do? Those are huge, important questions for you to answer. And then you can identify who you need to attract. And I don't want you to just think that you can just attract everyone, because first of all, that's impossible. But secondly, why is this target audience important? How will this target audience help you accomplish your bigger goal? So we can't just say, oh, we want to target young people. Okay, well, why? If one of your goals is to build up your peer-to-peer fundraising program, but your current audience is made up of baby boomers and the silent generation, maybe, yeah, you do need to target younger donors that are more comfortable, or maybe more comfortable with spreading the word, have bigger networks online. If you want to start a text advocacy campaign and your supporters don't have smartphones, you might try to reach, civically engaged digital natives, 20 to 30-year-olds that are comfortable with mobile technology and activism. You really need to understand who you're reaching and why. And once you've determined who this audience is, you want to answer these questions. What might they already know about you? What might drive them to take the action that you're desiring? Where do they get their information? And what else is important to them in creating a meaningful life? So audience identification is a vital piece of the social media puzzle. I don't want you to just cut through the clutter, because cutting through the clutter, to me, it almost seems selfish. It's like, oh, we're going to cut through the clutter and interrupt people and give them information because we want to give them information. We should be aiming to cultivate and nurture and inspire a wildly passionate group of supporters that would follow us from platform to platform. Always be thinking about the incentive for your audience. We want you to attend this event. Okay, what's in it for me? Why? We want you to make a donation. Okay, why? And am I going to feel good about it? Why am I visiting your website? Why am I looking at your social media? We really have to stop thinking of it as a billboard and just a marketplace for promotion. I love this particular ad from United Way of Massachusetts Bay, where I live. 6 ways for you and your family to give back this Thanksgiving. You better believe I clicked on that immediately, because I'm thinking I've got 2 kids and they get so many presents around the holidays. We want to give back. Let's figure this out. It was something value add for me. Molly spent 8 months fighting for her life at Boston Children's Hospital. She's doing great, and she receives the same care closer to home. This was an awareness campaign that Boston Children's did about their new pediatric specialties and opportunities available in Peabody. So what's, when you are thinking about your goal and your audiences, the third step, this is when you're going to choose your channels. I don't even get into choosing channels with my clients until like the third meeting, because we have to identify the goal and the audience. Because for an example, okay, so I'm going to give you an example. One of my clients is Boston Public Schools, and Boston Public Schools, we run awareness campaigns throughout the year around various initiatives. And in October, it's College and Career Month. And part of College and Career Month is encouraging high school seniors to fill out the FAFSA, the federal aid form for student aid. And it's really challenging to get people to fill out this form, but we know that if you fill out this form, you're 80% more likely to actually attend college, because then you can get financial aid to go to college. So there's proven data. So we're using, logic and data, but they wanted to do an awareness campaign targeted to high school seniors. And they said to me, let's run Facebook ads. And I thought, okay, high school seniors are not on Facebook. And if the goal is to reach high school seniors to get them to fill out the FAFSA, there's a misalignment, a non-alignment, an unalignment with the platform. Yeah, sure. The platform could reach teachers, administrators. We could reach a lot of different audiences on Facebook, but we're not going to reach high school seniors. So that's very important that you understand your goal and your audience before picking the platform that you are aligned with, because all of the platforms, they operate as different countries. So if you're going to Germany, you're not going to buy a guidebook for France. Yeah, they're in Europe, right? But no, they're totally different languages, different cultures. You really want to be immersed in the platforms that you're using. And that's why I recommend only using one or two platforms, especially if you're a small nonprofit, because getting to know the culture and the best practices and the strengths and weaknesses of each platform, that's really time consuming. So it's not enough to have a digital strategy. You have to have a strategy for each tool that you're using. So your website, your email, maybe you're on Instagram, maybe you're on Facebook, maybe you're on LinkedIn. All of the platforms, you can have an overarching kind of theme for your digital marketing, but each strategy has to have a platform. Why are we using this platform specifically? What do we hope to gain? What voice will we have? What types of content are we going to share that work for this platform? What works? Photos, video, graphics. Not all platforms are designed the same. What will we measure so we know progress and success? We also have to really understand that we don't have control over these channels. And I know that all of you know this. And I just did a Facebook ads webinar earlier today with my friend Susu Wong. She's a Facebook ads expert. And she was talking about the iOS changes and the data privacy changes and all the changes to Facebook ads. And it just really proves my point that we can use these channels and leverage them to build community, but we don't have control over them. And we do need to understand that at the end of the day. So we can get frustrated, but I don't have a bat phone to Mark Zuckerberg. As much as I wish I did, I don't know what I would even say to him. Well, I do know kind of what I would say to him, but we don't, it's all different. Everything's up in the air. Elon Musk is buying Twitter. I mean, who knows? So we do need to keep in mind that take everything with kind of a grain of salt and don't put all of our eggs in this basket. When creating content, I do recommend having a lot of fun. This is probably my favorite piece of the social media management pie, is creating content topics. There's so much that you can talk about. I know when I talk to my clients and they say, we don't know what to post about, I just think, oh, I could give you probably 100 ideas. I could give you 100 ideas if you give me like 24 hours. And I think that might just be my journalism background. I think that might just be something about the way that I just have so many ideas coming at me all the time. But the key here is to step back and see the forest for the trees and not just think about what do I want to say. Think about what your audience wants to hear. Stories, stats and data, behind the scenes, upcoming events, milestones, cause and awareness days, news stories, how-to posts, inspirational quotes. There's so many opportunities for content. 80% of what you share should be interacting, educating, inspiring, entertaining, and connecting. 20% can be promotion. And that 20% does still have to be interesting. We can't just kind of mail it in with our promotion. But this is a good little framework of the kind of content that you need to create. And as you can see, we need to be giving a lot more than we receive. Behind the scenes stories of your staff and why they do their work and what they're hopeful for and what are their biggest challenges and what do they see on the horizon and why do they continue to wake up and do this work every single day. Facebook Lives, Instagram Lives, even just Zoom meetings around frequently asked questions. You know, during 2020 in the pandemic, Susan G. Komen in Florida, they did a whole series of Facebook Live videos specifically around questions that they were receiving from their audience. You know, what about chemotherapy for breast cancer patients during COVID? What do we need to know? What do we need to, how does COVID affect breast cancer patients? It was all very focused on the frequently asked questions that they were getting from their audience. And then even just creating little quotes and little graphics around sort of mission moments. Like not everything has to have a call to action. If you look at the One Can Help post, it's just awareness. It's really awareness. It's building a community. If I support One Can Help, which I do, I look at this and I say, this makes me happy. This makes me proud to be associated with this group. There's no call to action on this. This is all about me and making me feel good. And if you look at Rosie's Place, sharing statistics, they actually share statistics quite a lot, you know, pretty horrifying and pretty mind-blowing statistics, but they do a lot around, say, Domestic Violence Awareness Month. And they talk about the importance of their work. So it's not asking me to do anything. It's really just saying, this is what we do, and we're proud to have you in your community. And then, of course, you can ask people to do things. There's certainly a time and a place, and it's definitely appropriate to ask people. Hunger Action Month, coordinating a food drive with your family, find out how. And then St. Baldrick's Foundation, you know, share the statistics, check out the entire infographic here. I love that. Today, about 90% of kids with the most common type of cancer will survive. When I read that, I just thought, oh, that is, and they're not saying that they're responsible for this, by the way. I mean, their work is partially a little tiny piece responsible, but they're not claiming that they're responsible for it. But it's just a fantastic statistic to share with people that care about kids with cancer. So that's the important thing at the end of the day. It's not about you. It's about what your audience wants to see. I loved this ad. I didn't really, well, when I say I love it, it really kind of upset me a lot. I'm on the school committee and I have 2 kids in school. So I do understand how vital providing, I think, free lunch and breakfast is. But at this point, we're just thinking about affordable breakfast and lunch here where I live in Massachusetts. But no matter what school looks like this fall, food banks will continue what they do best. And think about this statement: kids can't learn on an empty stomach. It's a statement that you, if you care about this issue, you agree with and you immediately identify with, and you say, I want to learn more about that. And then you're going to you're going to like make another list of types. So you've got all these great content topics that you could potentially touch on. How are you actually going to format them into pieces of content that go on social media or online? So there's a ton of content types: live video, pre-recorded video, photos, graphics, infographics, animated GIFs, articles. It depends on your capacity, your budget, and your tech know-how, 100%. So before we go into the 4 pillars of social media management, I want to recap creating this overall future-proof marketing plan, something that you can turn to again and again and again. Number 1, identify your goals. Number 2, understand your audience. And then number 3, choose your amplifying channels, which are your platforms. Number 4, create your content topics. And number 5, create a list of content types, potential content types. So this is really how to create a strategic plan. And then the 4 pillars is how you're going to manage your time on social media specifically. So the 4 pillars of social media management. Now, this is assuming that you have a plan in place, because I wouldn't want to teach these if you don't have a plan and content topics in place. The first huge piece of your work as a social media manager, even if you have an hour a week, okay? If you have an hour a week, 20 minutes a day, whatever you have, there are 4 things you need to always, always, always be doing. Research and listening. Research and listening. We need to start thinking of ourselves as journalists. We need to be looking for the interesting angle, the emotional hook. We need to constantly be asking ourselves, what will our audience want? Look at when Facebook and Instagram went down, the great Facebook Instagram outage of 2021. A lot of libraries started tweeting and posting about books. A lot of nonprofits started tweeting and posting like, hey, come to our historical site, our museum, our theaters, because they were listening. They were listening online. So what this might entail, I want to give you some specific tasks that you could do for within this pillar. So listing out some journalist influencers that you follow, make a list, create a label in your email for email newsletters. This is what I do. And I don't limit myself to 5 email newsletters. I should, because who has time to read more than 5? But I always think 5. 3 hashtags, keywords, things that you want to follow in your industry, not around social media necessarily, but in your industry. Say you work in childhood cancer research, you want to follow all of those hashtags. You want to know what people are talking about, what the latest things are going on. And then constantly be compiling examples and screenshots, because you want to be leaning on those when you're explaining to other people, hey, we should do this, or this looks cool, or you're getting ideas and you're seeing how other people do things. Now, the second pillar is content creation and curation. This is where you're creating original content with visuals. This is where you are going to get out of your comfort zone. This is where you're going to be actually creating those graphics and those videos. Curation, if you think of yourself as a museum curator, you didn't paint all those Monets, right? You didn't paint all of those paintings, but you brought them together in an exhibit that makes sense and you contextualize them. So if you think of creation as original content, curation is bringing together content that is really good for your audience. And I do that so much. If you follow me on Twitter, if you follow me in any of my Facebook groups, anywhere, I'm always sharing out information that I didn't necessarily create, but that I think is helpful for you. So what this might entail, 5 to 10 topics, stories that your audience likes. You hopefully already did that in the content creation section. How many can you create with original content? How many posts can you curate from trusted sources? And then this is just where you have to do the actual creation, the graphics, the videos, the photos. This is why I really don't recommend being on more than 1 or 2 channels if content creation is taking up your whole day, if you don't have time to manage it with all of the other things that are going on. Look at the content you already have. All of us have websites that have like 30 or 40 pages on them. Look at all of your annual reports, look at your grants, look at your event programs, like just look at all of the content, the library of content that you already have, and see what you can repurpose and put into the, repurpose, maybe put a fresh coat of paint on. Third pillar, Community management, because we're not just posting and going away. We're opening a two-way dialogue. Once we open this can of worms, we can't unopen it. So this means answering direct messages. This means acknowledging comments and questions that you get online. Some of us will have a lot of community management to do, and others will not. And that's just the reality. Some of us are going to have a ton of questions, a ton of interaction, and just people writing down their opinions and things like that. But some of us won't. But the key here also is to go into other accounts and participate. So be proactive rather than just reactive. So follow 10 accounts per week. Look at who follows you, and see who you could follow back. Answer all questions. If they're negative in tone, tell them to email you, tell them to DM you, just take it off the feed. And then, of course, if someone is harassing you, using obscenities and using language that is a violation of your policies, then absolutely you can ignore them. I mean, you don't have to respond to trolls or spammers, but if someone's genuinely asking you a question or expressing an opinion, you should probably acknowledge them and answer it appropriately. And the fourth pillar is measurement and analysis. And this is where we get tripped up, because oftentimes we don't know where we're going. We don't know how to get there. We spin our wheels and we don't know what we're actually trying to achieve. So we can't measure it. So, what to measure and where to find the data. This really requires a simple spreadsheet. Maybe it's really 3 pieces of data that you measure: website traffic, email signups, online donations, like whatever you want to measure. And this also, it has this second piece where you're going to be able to show your supervisors and coworkers that, yes, this work is really hard, but also it's pushing the needle forward in some way. I also recommend that when you choose your metrics, you run those reports, but you report out to your supervisors and others. And you say, this is what I'm doing. And it looks like Facebook's working really well this month. So maybe we should put some more money into Facebook ads. It looks like Instagram is really working this month. It looks like email marketing is blowing up this month. You'll really start to see the trends, and then you'll start to see what you can do to improve this work. Okay. The last few slides, I want to show you some battle-tested tools, and then I definitely do want to get to Q&A for the last 15 minutes. But some of my favorite tools, no surprise here, Canva. Canva is free for nonprofits. Oh, they had an amazing announcement. I think it was they've served 250,000 nonprofits, or 250,000 nonprofits have signed up for their free accounts. They also have a social media management tool. They have graphic design, video, all sorts of things. Animoto is another fantastic. It's like video for dummies. It really is. You can upload a montage. Say you have a golf tournament and you have 50 photos. Throw those 50 photos into Animoto, get some fun text overlay and some fun music, and bam, you've got a video. Lumen 5 can actually create a video for you from stock video that they have, and you just send them the text and you tell them how it works, and it's really pretty cool. WordSwag is one of my favorite mobile apps to create graphics on the go, especially for Instagram. It works really well. It's even lazier than Canva, believe it or not, because in Canva, you actually have to pick a template and you do have to type in. It's obviously very easy. But WordSwag, you literally type in the words, just text, and then you swipe through stuff and it formats it all for you. It's amazing. I like it on the go, like at conferences. Some scheduling tools, measurement tools, Hootsuite, Buffer. I personally really like Buffer. I just love their company. I love their ethics. I love their customer service. Buffers, I'm Buffer all day long. Hootsuite's another one that people really like. Meta has a whole business suite you can actually schedule for free to Facebook and Instagram through Meta. Lately, AI, it's not cheap, but it's kind of mind-blowing if you schedule a lot of content. So lately AI, you can cut and paste a blog post and it will pull out tweets and Facebook posts for you from that content. So it's basically like having a content assistant or like a social media assistant. Like I said, not cheap, but it's definitely something if you do a lot of long form content that you feel like you could chop up, just worth looking at. So in closing, trends come and go. Like, look at this graphic. I love this graphic. I was creating this slideshow and my son came in and he's 7 and he pointed at the black phone and he said, "What is that?" I was like, "Oh yeah." Like, I don't know if he's ever seen a phone like that, like a rotary phone. I don't know. And I said, "That's a phone." He's like, "That's not a phone." And I thought, wow, that's pretty crazy. So trends come and go. And that's not what's really important. What's important is meeting your supporters where they are, not where you want them to be, making every interaction frictionless and clear. Think about how we exist in the world. We want Starbucks, we get DoorDash. We want something, we get Amazon. We want to watch a show, we have Netflix. Like, everything is frictionless and clear. And nonprofits don't get a pass. They don't get a pass. The technology is available, for you to make these interactions frictionless and clear. Look at QGive, honestly, as one of the best platforms to do this in terms of mobile optimization and online giving. Consider the audience first. When revamping your website, writing that email sequence, always look at the audience. Think about how you can move people from these platforms that we don't control to the platforms that we do control. So getting them to your donation form, getting them to your website, getting them to your email list. That is something that should be on the horizon. That should always be a focus, is getting people over to the platforms where we actually do control the information rather than putting our eggs all in the social media basket. And then, don't get overwhelmed. Like, done is better than perfect. The only constant in any kind of marketing is that it's constantly changing. Platforms come and go. There's always going to be a new TikTok. There's always going to be some kind of shiny object. So if you focus on building your community that will follow you no matter where you set up shop, that is really what's going to elevate your social media to that kind of next level. Okay, so I am ready.
I love this.
For questions.
So good. Yeah, I'll go ahead and get started and read some of the ones to you that we've gotten in. And just a reminder for everybody, if you have any questions, please drop them in the Q&A box. Let's see here.
Oh, thank you, Gina. If you know me, you know words of affirmation. That's my love language. I don't know if you've read the 5 love languages.
Yeah.
Words of affirmation. Thank you.
This is a great one. Okay. Instagram Reels, kill me now. With our mission, I know. With our mission in tiny size, it's hard enough to generate photos. I have no idea what videos we could do. And frankly, I don't want to try or spend the time to learn about Instagram Reels. But I posted one by mistake and it got a lot of engagement. Do I have to?
You don't have to do anything. But yes, if you're on Instagram and if one of your goals is growing Instagram engagement, then I would say yes. So it depends on the questions you're asking. It depends on your goals. I know that I just listened to a podcast from a best-selling author, and she is not on any social media. She has a podcast, she has books, I think she has a website, but she doesn't use social media at all because that's just not what she does. But if one of your goals is to get Instagram engagement and grow your following on Instagram, then you need to play the Instagram game. If one of your goals is to get more followers on LinkedIn, you got to play the LinkedIn game, which is, LinkedIn Live, LinkedIn newsletters. So it really depends on your goals, but it does depend on your capacity as well. Like, what do you have the capacity to do? But in terms of Reels, that's just documenting. There's so much that you could document about your day. about what you're doing, even if you're working from home. The life of a development director, or I don't know, I think there could be some really funny reels that could be created. I also recommend following a lot of other nonprofits to see what they do and get inspiration. I follow a ton of other nonprofit consultants that make reels that I love, because I have not dipped my toe in the reels game either. I do stories, but that's about my comfort level with that. But I think it just depends on, like I said before, if one of your goals this year is to get a more engaged Instagram following, then you have to play the game. And reels right now are the best way to do that.
That's awesome. That's good feedback and good advice. Another question we got from an attendee says, a recent Facebook post I did got 5 times more views than we usually get.
Hmm.
And my ED got super excited and told me to figure out how to replicate it.
Oh,
Is
right.
there any way to even know how? I have hunches, but that's all they are. It was a repost of an article from a much larger organization slash publication. It offered fun info, has broad appeal. 2 followers with high engagement liked it. A random larger org reposted our repost. How can you figure out what's working as it evolves constantly, let alone replicate it?
I don't think you can replicate lightning in a bottle, but you can certainly learn from it. So, what was the topic and what were the comments on it? What time of day was it posted? Who was tagged in it? Um, had there been posts before and after? Sometimes if you wait a couple of days to post something, or maybe if it's right after another successful post, it's kind of piggybacking. But that's the key with the measurement analysis pillar, is be constantly looking at the back end data and seeing what are the trends that you can, as much as we can analyze these trends, because sometimes an influencer will repost it and then you can't replicate that. Like I had a client, and Ashton Kutcher retweeted their tweet. And so they're like, how can we recreate that? And I'm like, you can't. We'll just enjoy it and, live on this wave while we have it. But sometimes sometimes lightning just hits really at the right place at the right time. But look at the topic, look at the time it was posted, and then consider boosting it. I mean, if you haven't put any money behind it, boost it, create an ad around it, and then that's going to get you even more engagement, because people are telling you all the time what they like and what they don't like. Like if you post something and it's crickets, that's kind of real-time feedback. If you post it and it gets a lot of engagement, put money behind it, repost it, reshare it, comment on it, do a Facebook Live about it, like constantly be talking about it, because you don't want it to be a one-time thing. You want it to kind of build on itself. And I think you'll learn more about your audience that way.
That's awesome. Now this next question, this is a common one that I've seen quite a bit.
Mm-hmm.
I'm the sole marketing person at my nonprofit.
Mm-hmm.
The ED wants us on TikTok to get the younger generation, in addition to our presence on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, website, blog,
Ooh.
etc. Help. Showing them our numbers, reviewing our strategy, and other tactics have not slowed down their want for us to be on everything.
Well, this is where you have to advocate for yourself. You've got to advocate for yourself and say, if this gets on my plate, what's going off my plate? And I want all of you to hear that, like whether you're a fundraiser, whether you're a marketer, because the ED does not know. And I love all the EDs out there. They don't know what it's like on the ground, and they don't know what it's like to manage. So I would explain the 4 pillars to them and say, look, they probably think making a TikTok is just like doing the Lizzo dance and calling it a day. It's not. It's research and listening, content creation, community management, measurement and analysis. That's what it is. And to do those 4 things well takes time and effort, and something else is going to have to come off your plate. And I've been in this position I was a development / marketing director. I had a full-time development job smushed in with a full-time marketing job. And I eventually had to say, look, if you want me to redesign our website, I'm not going to be able to meet with major donors. Like what something has to give here. So the other question that I would ask strategically is, why do we want to be on TikTok? Reaching younger donors, there's no donate button for most of us. There's a donate button for the big organizations. So you can buy ads on TikTok and try to get donations, but it's really great for raising awareness. But if the ED wants that ROI of like, I can see that this donation came from TikTok, that's a lot harder to get than from Instagram or Facebook because there's no donate button. So at the end of the day, it really is just like we have all these things being thrown at us and all these expectations being placed on us, but we do have to advocate for our work and the importance of our work, especially if people don't understand the amount of strategy and planning that goes into marketing. If they just assume, oh, we're just posting what we had for lunch. And, that might be a generational thing. So I totally feel for you, but I would say, okay, if TikTok arrives, then something else goes away because it's just not feasible for me to manage 7 social media accounts effectively.
That's good. That answered a couple of people's questions, I think. And that's obviously a common problem with nonprofits is most of them are strapped on time and resources.
I think I see it with small business. I mean, I'm a
Yeah.
solo entrepreneur. It's really all about just it's the problem is I think we're all really high achieving ambitious people, and
Mm,
we are looking for that thing that could really help us grow our either business or our nonprofit. And the thing is just like it's just consistency. It's like doing something for 6 months and then making a decision. And then maybe Twitter is not your thing. I've talked a lot of organizations out of Twitter. I've talked to organizations out of, Instagram. It just might not be the thing, but prioritizing and really, I mean, there's only 24 hours in a day,
yeah.
but how we manage those 24 hours, like we want to make sure that we are not spinning our wheels and going crazy.
Do you have any suggestions on how to get other staff to buy into out of the box social media ideas? Um, the person said just out of their comfort zone. Examples would be reels, live streams, etc.
Well, I think there's several different types of staff members. There are ones that just aren't on social media. They don't get it. They're like, oh, this is dumb. I don't really get it. Like my husband is not on any social media, so he doesn't understand at all what I do.
That's
And
funny.
then there's people that are really fearful. So when I worked at a domestic violence shelter, I remember some staff members were genuinely scared because they were worried about client confidentiality. They were worried about identifying where the shelter was. They were worried about just a lot of things that were very legitimate concerns. So I would try to get to the bottom of what are their concerns? Like what's their hesitation to do any of this? And, if you post a silly reel at the end of the day, no one's going to die. I mean, I'm hoping no one's going to get hurt. It's just going to be fun. And then you're going to see if it works or not. And the key here is if you don't do it, then you'll never know if it's going to work. So for me, I constantly try to share examples of nonprofits that are doing these things and getting really great results so that people can contextualize it and see, oh yeah, that's cool. Like this, group Do Something is a great example. They share reels all the time. So showing examples of what you're talking about, because it might be confusing to people because they don't know what you're talking. They're like, what's a reel? What's a story? What's a live? I don't know what that is. But showing examples and then saying, I really think that this could be effective and here's why, and here's how we're going to do it. And I'd love your ideas. Like, can I get your thoughts on this? So inviting them to be a part of it, I think could also work really well.
Another question here. There's a lot of questions. And don't
It's
worry,
sure.
people,
It's
if we
okay.
don't get to all of them. You will get Julia's contact information
Yeah.
and the QGIF team's information as well. So if we can't get it today or within the next 5 minutes, we will you definitely will have our information to reach out later. Um, okay. So the organization I work with is technically separate from the organization for which we raise money. Essentially, there are two separate marketing teams, and I'm always reminding my team we need to speak to us and fundraisers versus what the other organization is doing. Can you share your thoughts on that?
It's always about the audience. Who are you talking to? So if this organization has a very distinct separate audience, then content needs to be created for them. And if your audience is distinct and separate and cares about different things, then that needs to be taken into account. But if there's overlap, I think there's probably a lot of marketing that you could do together. I mean, I'm just thinking of chapters, like the Boys and Girls Club chapters or the Make-A-Wish chapters. They, they're always creating content for the chapter and for the local region, but they're piggybacking off what the national organization does because the audience is very similar. They all care about kids after school programs or, Make-A-Wish, giving people memorable experiences at the end of life. So just we always come at it. It's so funny, all the questions when I get to webinars, we come at it from what we want and what we need, and we need to totally flip it on its head. It's not about what we need and what we want. It's about our audience. Maybe it's donors, maybe it's like when I work at BPS, maybe it's high school students, whatever it is. But we need to always be focused on the audience and what they want. And is it confusing to them? What can we give them to make a connection? What can we give to grow their relationship with them? And it's really not about our egos, our agenda, or anything like that.
Mhm.
So I think it's hard working with these big organizations that are so used to the more traditional way of marketing, but we need to constantly be pushing the envelope to always be thinking about the audience first and foremost.
That's really good. One last question here. Um, Anonymous attendee. I know creating content curated for a specific platform is the way to connect with your audience, but I find myself creating content and end up copying and pasting to all channels to save time. But I believe that is why we are not catering to our audience as much. Do you have strategies on how to organize repurposing content to fit into other platforms?
Yes, you can repurpose, but you have to look at it as like a block of gold. So Andy Goodman from the Goodman Center, he says about your story, but you could say about your content. It's a block of gold. And then if you want a ring or a watch or a necklace or whatever you want, you have to mold it into that. So for instance, on Instagram, yeah, you'll probably need emojis. You'll need some hashtags. You might want to tag some people. On LinkedIn, it's going to be very different. On Facebook. So the same story, the same video, the same photo, definitely you can use, but the cutting and pasting, you can't do. I mean, you think of Twitter, it's, what is it, 240? I don't even know what the number of characters are, but I think you have the right framework and the right mindset. So I wouldn't cut and paste. And I know it saves time, but you might want to cut out some of those channels that aren't working and really focus. Like if you look at the creators that do well, it's because they have one channel. Like look at the YouTube creators. They're on YouTube. They're all in on YouTube. Or people that are on Instagram that have millions of followers. They're all in on Instagram. They might have a TikTok, but they're all in. So if we're spreading ourselves too thin, if we're like an inch deep and a mile wide, it's
Mhm.
not going to get the results as if we have two channels and we go really, really deep on those two channels. But certainly you can repurpose, but I would not, I caution against cutting and pasting for sure.
Yeah, that, and I totally agree with you. And we usually run into the issue by the time we get to Twitter, once we put stuff in, it's way too long anyway,
Yeah,
you're kind of
right.
forced to change. Um, well, looks like it is
Yeah.
now, we're 1 minute over. Thank
Okay.
you to everybody who stayed, who engaged and
Thanks.
asked questions. Uh, we really appreciate you. And I just want to remind everyone that this was recorded and we will be sending out the presentation slides and the recording along with some extra resources tomorrow. So keep an eye on your inbox. It should come from marketing@qgive.com. Please reach out if you guys have any questions with the contact information you see here. And
Mhm.
thanks for tuning in.
Yeah. Thank you
Till
so
next time.
much. Bye. Thanks, Melina.
Thank you.